Welcome to KLEAN Radio. How you doing tonight, Judah?
I'm great. I'm watching Dr. Co. trying to put up our KLEAN poster and putting it on the wrong way.
Well, he's a psychiatrist, not a graffiti artist.
A psychiatrist extraordinaire.
He's not Bansky.
And,
Nobody's gonna get that reference.
Definitely not me.
Bansky's like the top graffiti artist, or one of the top graffiti artists.
Really?
Yeah, he goes around spray painting shit all over stuff. Oops, nope, there we go, already. That's my first one.
That's your second one.
That's my first one.
No, your first one was the F word.
I only got halfway through that.
It's, you've arrived. You've managed to curse twice. And you have
you know what? I give up.
You have your Marilyn Man. Your mother's going to be very disappointed. Your mother and I, who are building an extremely good relationship via Facebook.
The good thing is that we shoot in black and white with the video here in the studio, so I can wear like awkward colors and it all looks fine on the video. So
yeah,
I can be like colorblind almost. It's fantastic.
It sounds so loud. Does it sound loud on your end too?
Yeah, well, it's great. It's called radio. It's this new invention.
And thank God we have faces for it.
Well, we have Dr. Co in the studio tonight. Hello, Dr. Co.
Hi there.
Or as I affectionately call him, Dr. Coco.
Which makes no sense.
No. Well, Coco.
I've heard that before.
Yeah.
You have, really? So Judah is an original. Yeah. That's kind of upsetting for Judah, I think. Like, Judah thought that he was really exceptional.
I had the wrong headsets, and that's what I thought I was lowering it, but apparently it's.
Wow.
In college, he was Dr. Coco. He was like I could so see Dr. Co in college.
He wasn't a doctor yet.
But they still call him Doc because everybody knew he'd become one.
Cocoa Puff.
Cocoa Puff.
Well, that's because he was.
It was the '60s, probably, right?
And when it was his turn, they would say Cocoa Puff.
Somehow I doubt it.
And the number here is 877-830-830, 877-830-830. You're listening to KLEAN Radio.
You can come and join the ramblings of Judah.
Yes.
Give us a call and talk about our main topics, which are addiction and recovery.
Yes.
Which you couldn't probably tell from the first 2 minutes of our show.
Well, listen, it's experience. People have to know that we're not just people that like to talk about addiction. We've experienced this.
This is true.
And I also wanted to talk about something very interesting. People always wonder what a rehab is like, and I think this isn't an infomercial for KLEAN. But I was there last week and we were having fun, and half your patients were hiking up Runyon Canyon,
right?
And the other half were at the temple, and at the temple down Sunset.
Oh, they were, yeah.
And Andrew finds a hockey stick and starts poking me with this hockey stick. And I was
my old skills were coming back.
But I think it's also important to talk about because it's, all your old skills against me. You're showing me how to hip check.
I know. Well, you were hitting me lightly with your shoulder. I'm like, no.
I didn't want to hurt you, okay? I didn't want to hurt you.
Well, I just wanted to show you that it takes a little skill to play hockey.
It does take a little skill to play hockey.
That's part of the game.
That's right.
And Andrew was a youth hockey player taught by Bob Orr.
That's right. He actually helped teach me to skate.
Until Andrew's...
Really?
Yeah, Cornell Hockey Camp. He used to come in the summers.
Yeah. I remember him.
This guy, Doug Marriott, too, is also really good.
Don't know.
Unfortunately, I was a little too young to meet Ken Dryden, who was at Cornell. In the 4 years that Ken Dryden played goalie at Cornell, they won the NCAA championship all 4 years.
And that would have made your stay at Cornell so much more happy.
Well, I would.
Or Ithaca.
Yeah, anything that brings enjoyment to that cold town.
of your Ithaca experience.
Yeah, it's Ithaca, New York.
The reason I brought it up is because about what was going on last week. Because I think it's important. Because I think you have created an environment there, in your treatment center at KLEAN of love, of caring, of fun, and I think.
It's a milieu.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the technical term for it.
Yes. You threw me off with that word.
Well,
yeah, so now you have to take responsibility.
It's an attitude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I think that's extremely important. I think that, as somebody that's experienced quite a few rehabs, about 6 or 7 to be exact, it's a fun feeling when you go in somewhere and you could feel it. You feel the love. It's not just about money. It's not just about anything like that. It's about people getting better, and I can't think of that is contagious. When they say in the 12-step program, it's a program of attraction. That's what attracts people.
Yeah, I think for us it's also a place where we get to not experiment, but explore different avenues of treatment and look at clients in a very comfortable setting, but yet still serious in terms of clinical issues. So it's a very comfortable and bright environment, but yet we do serious clinical work there. So.
Yeah.
What was your experience in other places, Judah?
I mean, I was in a place in upstate New York called Veritasville. It was a great place. It was, but it wasn't, it was basically for city employees. So I was there with a bunch of firemen and police officers and me. And
they kept carrying Judah out the window. He didn't know why.
Yeah, there was some, and these guys were some twisted guys. I mean, I always tell the story. There was a priest there with Wet Brain who thought he was there for a week, but he was there for 27 years.
Wow.
And there was somebody, sadly, with like cerebral palsy, and every morning the firemen and the police would have something called the Special Olympics, and they would make these two race. I mean, that's what type of rehab I was in. These people were extremely...
Yeah, that's a little different than clean.
A little different than clean. But I was in a place in Florida, a great place called the Beachcomber, great place, run by a family. And I was in some decent places, but never did I... I wasn't in anywhere that catered to a specific need. It was, you're here for alcoholism, you're here for addiction. I don't even think these terms were around.
Well, we've learned a lot, but what we have is a therapeutic community.
Right.
Yeah.
But in 13 years, I really believe the world has changed. And that, we were talking about on the right here how much has changed technology-wise. So much has changed. I mean, I didn't know what bipolar. I had never heard that before.
Well, it's been around for a while, but yeah, I think that
in that world,
concept. Well, I think the concept. Yeah, I think the concept of psychiatric illness being examined within the realm of substance abuse has become more in favor again. I think there was a time in the beginning that people were thought of as crazy that were alcoholics, and then I think for a while it was thought of as sort of a non-psychiatric issue and more of a spiritual, moral malady.
Well, because they were following the 12 steps.
Right, and so there was this movement sort of away from the medicalization of substance abuse, but through psychopharmacology, and now the exploration was called the Pennsylvania model, which is generally cognitive behavioral therapy or some other sort of therapeutic intervention along with psychopharmacology. There's a re-medicalization of substance abuse.
Why do they call it the Pennsylvania model?
It was developed in Pennsylvania.
Was it developed at a place called Chit Chat Farms?
No,
Okay.
University of
Gave it a
Pennsylvania,
shot.
I believe. Chit Chat Farms.
that was one of the original rehabs. That's why I asked.
You know what? It's
Yeah.
and we're gonna go to Dolly Partonville. So next thing.
Angie, you look so cute in that hat, by the way.
I thought I'd wear a hat
Yeah.
just because I'm sick of Judah being the only hat person.
You literally look like you just got off a boat.
This is the hat episode. People
Yeah.
have to check us out online on Thursday when it comes up on KLEANradio.com.
Where's Dr. Co's hat? He's feeling a little left
I
out.
know, he's left out without a hat.
Yeah. I think Patrick's going to have to lend Dr. Co his hat.
Our guest doesn't have a hat, though, so,
No,
We're out of hats. Patrick, I think
Right.
Dr. Co needs a hat.
yeah.
no baseball hat for me.
Are you scared?
No, I'm not scared.
Patrick's got cooties.
Uh,
Well, we know where Patrick's going tomorrow.
It's not professional.
Right.
It is not professional, and this is forever.
It is forever. But that's what we were discussing,
Yeah.
that the internet is forever.
Yeah.
Until it becomes, actually there's this new thing where digital media becomes obsolete, where all of a sudden the gadgets you have or the drives you have don't exist anymore, and you have all this media and stored data that you can't play.
It's a very interesting story.
So
Really?
yeah, the people are losing like all sorts. They say there's like tons of data that's actually nothing's written down anymore. It's all on disks.
Sure.
And so if you got a 3 1/4 inch floppy drive, where do you stick it in now? Nobody's got floppy drives. Everybody's moving to web-based cloud servers.
Oh, you have to constantly update your data.
Right. Yeah, you have to
Resave
keep
it.
moving it forward. Yeah, but
Yeah.
a lot of people don't. So
Yeah.
now they've got, the data on disks that they can't play.
Unless they want to go to like a pawn shop and buy like,
Right.
buy like something from 1989.
It's true.
I remember when 8 years ago I still had floppies.
Yeah, you probably still do.
I probably now I think I'm.
We're not going to talk about your floppy. That's a different kind of disorder. So.
Yes, yes, it is. And Andrew's very. I don't know.
It's called ornery. Look it up.
Ornery. Okay. Are we using words tonight that Judah does not understand?
Yeah, it's gonna be a vocabulary lesson.
And the number here is 877-8830-830. The number here is 877-8830-830. You're in the studio tonight with Dr. Jason Coe.
Yeah, let's take a break, and then I think we'll bring in our first guests and just kind of get the topics rolling tonight.
Okay. Sounds like a plan.
That's good. Judah, no dance tonight.
I was like listening to see if there'd be music.
Right, you got the hat, but no dance. And by the way, the beginning of the viral nature of our Judah dance video is taking off on YouTube.
Yeah, a whole like 80 people, 100 people have watched it. It's very exciting.
That's
80 more people that have ever watched me before.
Considering how bad your dance is, 100 is like, that's.
And your mother actually
offered.
Your mother actually offered that your father would pay for dance lessons. So I think we're going to integrate that into the show.
And you don't know how cheap my dad is, so that's.
Yes. But I think your mom has somewhat wanted to adopt me, and.
Yeah, she thinks that you need like extra care.
Yeah.
She's very nurturing.
So I'll have two mothers in New York.
But it's a trick. She's nurturing to begin with, and then she tightens the ropes and
she whips you into shape.
It whips you into shape.
Yeah.
That's right.
You do know your mother listens to this,
I do.
right?
I've got nothing. She's on the other coast. What's she gonna do?
You got the 3,000-mile buffer.
I do.
She's heard it all by now.
Exactly. Let's welcome our next guest here.
Okay.
We have Stephen.
Hey guys.
Stephen, you want to?
Wow, you remembered a name.
Right? That's like the
It's
first
amazing.
one in 3 shows.
Yeah.
So, Stephen, tell us a little bit about yourself. Your comic?
Yeah, I'm a stand-up comic. I recently just started going on tour in Southern California with a group of 6 other guys, and we've been doing it for about 4 years. And recently, we just decided, why don't we put together a show ourselves and take it on the road?
Right.
And try and drum up some interest that way, because doing it yourself, is a little bit more difficult. There's tons and tons of comics in LA, so.
Yeah, it's it's funny because it's hard really to get tours going. It's like
It is.
and LA is brutal. It's like the 5-minute comedy set. Like
Exactly.
sit around for 4 hours and do 5 minutes.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's always, we don't have time to stretch our legs. So on the road, we're doing, we each do 10, 15 minutes or whatever, and can expand our acts.
See, I know guys in New York that do comedy that do 7 different shows a night, 8 different shows, but in different places.
You're on one little
so they're like
island.
racing across Manhattan, to do 15 minutes, then come back. And it doesn't seem like there is that here.
There isn't. There really isn't.
LA's just a whole different scene.
Yeah.
LA's also much more full of itself.
Is it also very political? Well, that's just a given. But is it also very political?
I don't find that it's really all that political.
I don't mean political as far as concern. I'm just saying of like who like to get into the Comedy Store or the Laugh Factory or.
Well, I mean, there's different ways to go about it. Anyone who can get people to show up for a show can get stage time, and that's what we come in contact with a lot is show promoters who just fill the place with comics who can bring people and not necessarily
just starting
talent.
out.
Yeah, exactly.
And can bring all their friends.
Yeah, and that can be really frustrating sometimes,
Right.
And so I political not so much. It's more of a numbers game,
Yeah,
And,
the same thing happened with music business where, bands have to prepay for 100 tickets to get to
Right.
play for the night,
Right.
which is even more brutal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But anyway, so our show actually is about addiction recovery, not about the business of entertainment, which is declining. As we speak.
Well,
the quality
which
of
is
the
funny because
show.
tonight's the MTV. Which is funny because tonight's the MTV Music Awards.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
why do we do a show on Sunday night?
I don't know.
We've
but
got
we
the Grammys.
Yeah.
that knocked
Does
us out.
anybody
We had-
watch the MTV Music Awards, or what is it? The Movie Awards?
Well,
or the
some
Music
movie
Awards?
yeah.
It's the Movie
Awards.
Awards.
I
Who
would
would watch the
imagine-
MTV Movie Awards?
Probably about 3 more million people than are listening to us.
Well, yes, that's definitely that's definitely true. But like, is there anybody that watches it that says, "Oh, my favorite Screen Kiss. I am so happy they got nominated."
Yeah, I don't know what drug you'd have to be on to enjoy that part.
Right,
So.
but that's like the theme of so many of their,
Yeah.
best handheld, the best hand-holding moment.
I think I was part of the MTV generation, but I think I've left that behind now.
It's
there was a
changed,
time
right?
when,
How old are you? Can I ask?
I'm 32.
32. Yeah.
You don't look
so-
a day older.
Great. So MTV was actually like
Music television.
It was relevant,
Yeah.
Right.
as far as music is concerned. When I
Did
was
they have
coming up.
shows on it already when you
No.
became aware? So it was still
No,
just
it was
videos.
strictly music. Yeah.
See, I was actually around when it only played for half a day.
When it was called TV.
And it showed the same like 7 videos over and over and over again for the like 8 hours that it was on.
Yeah, well, that's what it was about. I mean,
That's all it was, yeah.
you know, when AHA was like, you know, took over MTV.
Yeah. See, I could talk for hours about this because I know all the guys that started MTV, but this is a show about addiction and
What's the
recovery.
name of your comedy
You know
tour?
what this show should be about? It should be about obsessive compulsive disorder and inability to talk about it. Stay on top.
Yeah.
The tour is actually called the
Tangential thinking on AM radio.
Which is AM radio, by the way, is tangential thinking.
We are the convicts of comedy, and some of us actually have been to
Convicts?
lock up. Yeah,
Really?
a couple of us.
So you, not you though.
Minor stuff. No. I'm
Jail?
a little
No
too-
jail?
No.
Really?
Drunk tank. That's
Drunk tank? That's
Yeah.
jail.
yeah.
Well, that's
Like
how he got
that?
into
Drunk-
the tour. It has to be like a minimum of you have to have had bars shut behind you.
No.
A heavy door.
A heavy door counts. It could be a.
Yeah.
So you've never been in prison or?
No.
So
Thankfully, no.
you're sober though, right?
Yeah, I am.
How long have you been sober?
2 years, 2 months.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
Yeah. So what on earth made you decide that you needed to get sober?
Well, it was problems with the law I was running into.
Right.
Got the standard DUI, and all these wake up calls that were being presented to me wasn't enough to get me to do anything about it.
Right.
And it just progressed. And,
So what was another wake-up call? You said DUI was one. What,
dislocating my shoulder in a blackout.
blacking out and
yeah.
dislocating one shoulder? That's,
Punching out my computer, that was a good one.
Right.
Again, in a blackout. Just waking up with weird bruises and aches.
Do you know
and
why
pains
you
and-
punched out your computer?
Well, no, because he was in a blackout.
No, but I'm wondering if, like,
Yeah.
maybe what you read caused you to black out.
I don't
Like,
know. I
But
was-
when you would see
blackout
it in the
of-
morning, would you wonder how it happened?
I would actually. I would wake up with food wrappers or whatever the night before and be like, oh God, did I just drive to Carl's Jr. in a blackout? Yeah, I did.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Have
Let's
no-
explain what a blackout is, by the way, because I think a lot of people don't understand there's a difference between a blackout, right, and a brownout. Because no, I've heard the term now used as a brownout, where it's like you sort of could remember.
I've never heard that before.
I've never heard of brown.
I've heard the term brown.
The two
No, I haven't
clinicians.
either.
This is a Judah term.
I've heard the term
You don't
brownout.
know what ornery means, but now
Of
you're going
course
to tell
I know
us
what the word ornery
brownout
means. I
is.
can't pronounce it, but I could.
Okay, what's a
A
brownout?
brownout, a blackout, you don't remember, right? You
Yeah.
don't. You wake up in the morning, you don't know how you got there. You have no. You actively were doing stuff.
That's not a blackout?
That's a blackout.
Oh, okay, so a
That's-
brownout.
That's amnesia.
Well, no, that's that's
No, a blackout is amnesia.
okay. So
Where the memory stops working.
right, but
Because
you're actively doing stuff.
Yeah, alcohol attacks the memory.
Right. So a brownout would be, a brownout would be where you could remember certain things that did happen,
But
You-
not all of it.
but not all of it.
There should
So-
be a gray out.
A gray, they're right. But I've heard it called a brownout.
Well, I've definitely had both. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, those are things they're very scary. I mean, I think a lot of people at least come into the 12 steps having gone through a blackout. I think a lot of you meet a lot of people in 12-step meetings. That's one of the things that got them there was, oh my God, who did I wake up next to? Right. Who did, something traumatic actually happen to them? It doesn't always last that they stay, but that's what gets a lot of people in.
I've always found this interesting, Dr. Ko, like, people that sleepwalk or a blackout. I mean, people obviously are consciously aware of what they're doing at the moment, but so you're saying just they don't have any recall or memory of it?
It doesn't get connected to memory, to any, no memory traces are laid down, is what happens.
So you're actually
Yeah.
really driving and you're consciously aware that you're driving in the moment?
Oh, and you're capable of
Yeah.
doing automatic type functions.
I like how I'm saying yes for the doctor, but I'm just relating to my own stories of
the hat,
going,
Judah.
I must have.
It's the expert hat.
So how long could people stay in them for?
Well, there's a state, if you keep drinking, that eventually you go into a Korsakoff syndrome, and you'll destroy any kind of memory.
Is that wet brain? What is that?
That's what you mean by wet brain.
Right.
Yeah. That every day is a new day. Yeah.
Korsakoff. He was a chess player and an alcoholic.
Is it really a Korsakoff chess player?
No, I think it was named after the doctor.
It was named after the first guy that couldn't
See,
remember.
I should leave the comedy to the comedian.
Yeah, you should. But your hat is enough tonight for the comedy.
My hat is it's very ethnic.
But would you agree
skill.
with that? That most people that come, I mean, I don't think to rehab or
it
to.
depends on the type of drug now. Sedatives, by and large, do affect memory, like benzos.
You could have a blackout from that.
Yes.
You could actually be on a benzo and work and function and not remember what you did.
Well,
I did it for 20 years. What are you talking about?
function
But you remember.
functions such as it is. It depends on the dosage. Alcohol is much more effective at causing blackouts than benzos.
And in the beginning, when you first start drinking and you have from the beginning of when you're drinking to the end, the blackouts obviously happen a lot quicker. Why does that happen?
It's dose dependent. There are a lot of peculiar things that go on with substance abuse. One of them is tolerance, which means that you need an increasing dosage to get the same effect, or if you keep taking the same dosage, you don't get the same effect. But there's also a phenomenon called sensitization, which will, in a way, make you more sensitive to the drug.
Right. So in the ending, I'm speaking.
That's how. Well, let me finish. That's how some people kill themselves, because they've been off of the drug, and then they take what to them had been a regular dose, and it's too much.
Right.
They have a seizure, or they.
We see a lot of that when people come out of rehab if
Right.
they're not warned.
Right.
That
Yeah.
especially with narcotics, right?
That happens with opiates. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what about in the ending when I stopped towards when I started getting sober? If I had a drink, that started to do the same thing that 10 drinks used to do. Like I would lose it a lot quicker.
That's because you're more sensitive.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what I was just talking
Right.
about. Yeah.
So that's the name. What is that called?
Go ahead.
Sensitization.
Sensitization.
Andrew was just trying to be.
I can't.
Yeah.
Did I say that correctly?
It's close enough.
And the number here is 877-830-830. That's 877-830-830. You're listening to Clean Radio, and we're in the studio tonight with Dr. Jason Coe and convict comedian Steve.
And his last name? Jackson?
Of course I remember Jackson. And
yeah.
Steven Jackson. I mean, point guard.
Of course. I just stalled for 3 seconds
Point
before
guard
I-
for the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, doesn't he also play for the St. Louis Rams too?
The running back for the
Running
St.
back.
Louis Rams.
Yeah.
I guess Steve Jackson's probably a pretty common name, right?
Yeah.
Among
So
black people.
So there's no.
Among African American people.
Wow.
For the record, I am
Right.
not black. But,
Right? But Judah is.
I am. I am.
He's Ethiopian.
My last name is actually spelled Freedman.
Right.
And
Wow, that was such a bad joke. I just don't even know where to go.
the reason I know that is because a friend of mine met another Judah Friedman, and he was African American, and that's how he spelled his last name.
Freedman.
Friedman, yes. So Steven Jackson from the.
Should I just get a
convicts
shovel so you can really dig a hole?
I know. Let's just end it now, and
Let's put you out of your misery.
yeah, please. As I'm like turning red in the studio.
So anyway, so you got sober. That's what we were really talking about.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So you had these warning signals. You were blacking out.
Yeah, and I mean more so than just the physical stuff was the emotional stuff for me,
Right.
And depression was something that I always dealt with from a young age, from a really early age, but it only escalated when my drinking escalated too. It was just kind of hand in hand, both progressively got worse and worse.
Do you think you were drinking to deal with the depression?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It was it's just a way of, and I didn't know this at first, but it became a way of me to check out and not deal with what was really bugging me, and it's kind of insidious in that you don't really you don't see it that way at first, and I'm having a good time, I'm seemingly having a blast, and then I'm having some problems. And then it's just problems. The fun goes away. And it got me to a very narrow place in my life where I was at home most of the time by myself, drinking by myself. That's where it got me. So, yeah. And that's when the emotional stuff really set in. So.
Were you drinking every day when you finally quit?
Yeah, absolutely.
Drinking in the morning?
You know what? I was not,
Not
I was not
getting
really
up
a
in the
morning
morning.
drinker because I was usually hungover, and the last
Right.
thing I wanted to do was drink more in the morning. I know that's not everyone's case, but it was for me. But as soon as as that like 5 o'clock hour hit, it was on for the
Right.
rest of the night.
That's one of my favorite questions, though, by the way. Did you drink in the morning? Because if I wake up at 4 in the afternoon, You know, that is my morning.
Well, you probably mean you went to bed at 5 in the morning.
Morning is always relative when you're an alcoholic. Did you drink at 5 in the afternoon? Yes. What time did you wake up? 4:30 in the afternoon.
So anyway, so you got sober. Were you doing comedy while you were using?
I was, and not very effectively, I don't think. I was developing an act when I was drinking, and I even would go so far as to have a couple of drinks before I would go on stage to sort of take the edge off, and I never found that helped. Never.
Right.
Not even before I even thought about getting sober did I find that it helped. It kind of made me just unfocused and harder to connect one thought to another while I'm on stage. So
I think we've had a lot of comedians, actors in here, and they generally report like that they like to drink before to deal with anxiety, but then as soon as it comes time to perform, they're kind of messed up the whole deal.
Yeah, it's weird. You want that.
You overshoot the mark.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
you
I
want
wish
that
they
like
had-
nervous anxiety and energy when you go up on stage.
Makes you sharper.
Yeah, it does. It really does. You know, and it's intense for an alcoholic to try and deal with on stage. But any time that I drank anything in my system, it was just I was unfocused. It was dull. It was.
So when you stopped drinking, right, and then you still had to perform comedy. Was that a struggle? Was there a transition?
Oh, it was. It was weird. It was a whole transition period of like I don't. How am I going to do this? You know.
Right.
And luckily at the time I was still trying to work it out for myself. I was still very new to comedy when I was getting sober, so. It was a whole process of learning what to do, what not to do, and while I was basically learning what to do, what not to do in life,
Right.
off the stage. So it was tough. And
Did you end up talking about it on stage?
Yeah, I do. But the jokes that I do about my drinking are kind of banal. Not that they don't really get to the root of my emotional pain. You know what I mean? I like to do stuff that's a little bit lighter that people can laugh at.
Right.
And I've only
Like
now,
marriage.
Yeah, exactly. No emotional pain there.
Well, I think if you're young, I mean, when you get into stand-up, is it easier to talk about? So much of your good stuff probably does come from your craziness.
Yeah,
Because you haven't been married.
Exactly, and that's what I'm finding out right now. Because it was all well and good to write a really good joke and have people laugh, but I'm finding now that I've gotten sober and some clarity on my life and my where I actually was at. A kind of a realistic perspective on it. I'm like, I want to talk more about that, and I want to talk more about what was really going on, and what's really going on right now. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go out and take another break. Judah, why don't you give us our number again, since you've become the resident expert of number giving?
That's 877-830-830. That's 877-830-830. We're in the studio tonight with Dr. Jason Coe and comedian Stephen Jackson.
Excellent.
And you're listening to KLEAN Radio. That's Clean with a K.
We'll see you in a couple seconds. Wow, we just got the head bob dance.
And the eyes closed.
Yeah.
Cute.
That means I was feeling it.
Welcome our listeners back to. Did I say black?
Yes, you did.
It's funny. You never realize you have like verbal tics, so you're on the radio all the time, and then you're like, back.
Yeah. So let's
Back
talk
to
about your
Friedman.
Marilyn Manson shirt, which is actually really freaking me out that I'm staring at that face.
Yeah. Why?
Because, I mean, I never got Marilyn Manson. I just didn't.
It didn't yeah.
I couldn't, just didn't invade me like apparently it does you and Lady Gaga, because I know you're a huge fan. And it's okay.
Well, I think that Lady Gaga is Marilyn Manson.
Yeah,
I think Marilyn Manson had a sex change.
And the kid from Mr.
became
Belvedere,
Lady
right?
Gaga.
Wasn't that the rumor always?
I don't know. Who knows?
Andrew actually has, this is a true story, this is no joke, he has a waxed head of Marilyn Manson.
His real head.
His real head. I'm not joking.
I know, it's so weird.
You can't make
So
that up.
weird.
Is it on display in
It's
your
actually
house?
not a wax head. It's like a mask. It's a death mask.
And it's really from his face?
Yeah, but see, I think you're gonna make me sound weird, but it's not as weird as it sounds. Because
No, it's pretty weird.
well, there's this artist called Joel Peter Witkin. Do you know who he is? Of course not.
No.
Joel Peter Witkin is a photographer from San Francisco, and he has this story that when he was young, he was driving along with his parents, and they passed a car accident, and he saw somebody decapitated,
Mm-hmm.
and he had horrible nightmares, ever since then. and he became a photographer, and he makes these very sort of dreamy, nightmarish, gloomy photographs, all in black and white. But if you look at early Nine Inch Nails videos after the first album, second album, and around 2000, and Marilyn Manson stuff, a lot of the visual imagery all comes from Joel Peter Wiccan, along with death masks, which Joel Peter Wiccan used in strange ways in his photography collages, including
Riveting radio, right?
He would cut them in half.
This is just riveting.
If you're going to ask me why...
I didn't know it was such a long story as to why you have a mask. Have you ever worn it for Halloween?
It's solid wax.
So Andrew and I had this conversation on the way down here. I actually enjoy doing this. I enjoy bowling. Andrew's convinced that the only reason...
I like art, and Judah likes bowling.
But Andrew's convinced the only reason there is bowling is to drink. So now that he's...
I'm gonna have to disagree with that one. I think bowling.
That was a private conversation. Now I've offended every bowler on AM radio.
Yes, you have, because most bowlers are on AM radio.
But anyway, you don't think that? I mean, most people that go bowling to me, I normally think of like they've got a pitcher of beer and they're drinking, and
it wasn't that way for me, because again, like I'm unfocused and I can't.
It's smoking, right?
I can't play the game.
I agree. I enjoy bowling. Which I think is a huge thing for a lot of people when they get sober. I think we're actually talking about something.
Bowling
is I didn't have that issue. I didn't have that issue with bowling. I didn't have that issue with certain things, but certain things I did. I had a hard time going to concerts.
Right.
I had a hard time going to football games.
Mm-hmm.
Because that I did a lot, or baseball games. I mean, I used to drink to go to baseball games, not go to baseball games to drink.
Right.
And
important.
No,
topic.
you just said the same thing twice, but whatever.
We're talking.
No. It's a big difference what I said.
No, you said.
I used to drink to go to baseball games, not go to baseball games to drink.
Oh, okay.
See, very profound what I just said.
But
I don't know if they're really that different, but whatever. Go ahead.
Let's keep on track.
Yes, but bowling wasn't one of those things for me. But I think when people do get sober, they have to learn how to do certain things again. It's really like being, almost like when you do have amnesia.
Learn different ways to enjoy them.
Right. It's like it's almost in a sense when you come out of a coma, you have to learn how to walk again.
Right.
You have to learn all these motor skills. When you do get sober, you have to learn. And I think most people don't want to get sober because they're so scared of having to learn those things. Those things are terrifying. Yeah. You're 23, you're 33, you're 43, and you have to learn how to go on a date sober. That is terrifying.
Right.
It is, yeah. And I think what we're talking about here is learning how to engage people, where most of my life, I can only speak from my perspective, it was about disengaging and finding a way to block out because I always felt like, well, I don't really have anything interesting to say, you know what I mean? And whatever I'm going to say to you is just going to bore you or whatever. It's not going to be of any value, And that's the stuff that I dealt with. So getting sober and having.
So you chose going to comedy.
Yeah.
Like only the hardest way to engage in self-expression alone on a stage with no feedback.
Doesn't that make sense though? I'm forcing myself to actually find a voice now,
right.
which is like the biggest, most important thing of for me right now is in my recovery and in my life.
It's kind of what comedy's about, right? It's about really finding your own personal voice and perspective on the world.
I think that's what recovery is about.
Yeah.
I guess this is true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Profound again.
Uh-huh. Yeah. In a Judah kind of way.
Yes, in my Judaisms.
What do you think recovery is about, Jason?
Well, he said, Dr. Coco said, Dr. Coco said the best thing last week, and I've been thinking about it all week, was he was talking about the real spirituality is the freedom.
It's freedom from symptoms, obsessions, addiction. Yeah. But is that what you meant?
Yes, that's what I meant,
yeah.
Doc.
Okay.
And no, it resonated with me all week. It did. That we're always looking for, spiritual experiences, spiritual awakenings, but the freedom of not having to wake up in the morning and know where your car keys are is a very freeing feeling.
Yeah, I still can't find my car keys.
Yeah.
Without using a substance.
Yeah. But that's also because your apartment has like three dogs, 3 cats.
What are you talking about? I got the fat man, who's is like a creature,
mm-hmm.
and then I have one fluffy, Very fluffy dog.
Yes.
A little white fluff ball.
I like the topic of spirituality, and as it pertains to sobriety, and it's not to say that when I was drinking, I wasn't capable of having a spiritual experience. I firmly believe that I was, but there came a time when alcohol really became my master. Became my god and became all important. It's like indentured servitude, to a substance, and that's what it became for me. And now finding that spirituality, which I think all of us experience at some point in our life, going back to when we were kids, learning to find that and rediscover that again. I really feel like I'm 2 years sober now. I feel like I'm just really that old, just coming into life again. I'm like a toddler. It's.
So how do you define spirituality for you? How does that manifest itself now?
For me, it's really about finding my voice and speaking from a place of comfort and knowledge. Allowing myself to actually feel that I have something to offer the world.
Mm-hmm.
That for me is my higher power, and I find it any way I can, and it happens to be through comedy right now, and getting up and talking to people, because that's what I spent all my time avoiding, was actually talking to people and engaging them. So
it's so interesting. Like, I wonder, like, in Eastern cultures where there's a lack of emphasis on the ego and the self, and spirituality is more about community and wholeness of the culture, right? And Buddhism, and you go to Japan, there's it's not like this. People wouldn't sit around and say spiritually that it's about my voice. They'd be socially inhibited from saying that, that idea. So. So my point is, from like a psychoanalytic standpoint, Dr. Ko, can you really practice psychoanalytic theory in a culture where spirituality de-emphasizes the ego?
That's a good question. Yeah. And what I was thinking about is there less addiction in these homogeneous cultures?
Definitely not. I can tell you just from being in Tokyo. I mean, I was in Tokyo and Friday night hits, and oh my goodness, you've never seen a drinking culture for business people like there is in Tokyo.
But is that because of us? Is that because our culture has invaded them?
No, I don't think so.
What about China, though?
I've been to China. My parents have been. We should give them a call. My dad's loaded in Beijing right now. Let's give him a call.
Right.
I heard Japan has the highest suicide rate. Is that correct?
It has a very high suicide rate.
Definitely during World War II.
It has a very high suicide rate with teens. I don't think their adult suicide rate
with
is much
teens.
higher. Yeah, because there's so much pressure.
The pressure to succeed.
Yeah. But I think that's become more universal.
They also have a huge thing with the
globally.
internet addiction.
One of the things that freaked me out in Japan when I went there was they actually had overall tall buildings over the entryways, and alongside the buildings was great, so that if people jump off the buildings, they don't hate you.
Really?
Yeah,
is that true?
It's actually true.
Oh my God, that's frightening.
Whoa. Yeah.
You'd think they may put cushions there so people wouldn't die,
Very
but they're
fluffy,
just putting grates there so you don't get hit.
Oh man.
Don't kill somebody else.
Yeah, right. So you don't kill somebody else. It's okay if you die. I mean, seriously, if you're going to go ahead and put a grate there, might as well put a cushion on top of it.
Suicide's a
I think we're going to have to go down to Japan.
It's a major public health issue.
It is.
Plus, so is internet addiction.
Yeah.
Right? How they're related, I don't know.
But I think there is a lot of alcoholism in Japan.
There is, yeah.
Because it's...
Well, there was a huge addiction to amphetamines during World War II. They dosed almost the entire population.
Right.
So,
well,
yeah.
I mean, we were using a lot of amphetamines
In the 40s, 50s, right?
Yeah, and still do.
Yeah.
For who? Our soldiers?
Yeah, for those long flights where there's just one person in the cockpit and they're bringing planes around the world. There's no other way to do it. They refuel them in there.
Can you imagine that? Like just being on a hot air balloon,
well,
going across the world.
Well, 20-hour flights.
Judah, I'm sure you've done that in your mind.
I have. Richard Branson and I. Virgin Judah.
He's wearing his ballooner hat.
Yeah, I'm actually wearing an angel hat.
Covering up the angel logo after the loss today.
Well, I'm a Yankee fan.
This is really, you're so confused, Jude. I feel like maybe my mother
You just figured that out. That I'm confused.
Right, Yankee fan wearing an Angels hat. The
It was a
Angels
birthday
played the
present.
Yankees
It was a
today.
birthday present from
Rand.
From Rand. So
Right, you've worn it. You haven't taken it off since.
I haven't taken it off since. It's
and it's been like, what, 3 weeks now?
3
You've
weeks.
been wearing your birthday present?
I've been wearing my birthday present.
I actually feel kind of like I need to buy you something so you can move on from the hat.
Let's buy me a new hat. I mean, when I like something, I wear it a lot.
So you're
It's
very
like-
you attach yourself very much.
You don't have that with sandwiches or anything? Like when you find a good sandwich, you just go to that sandwich often?
I haven't found a sandwich I don't like.
That's true. Andrew's actually on a very healthy kick right now. Andrew is on a diet.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's
Yeah.
trying to lose some weight.
Yeah, I'm only having one milkshake a night.
Wow.
And he's only getting number one a night.
Yeah, right.
So I think Stephen said it very well when he talked about recovery.
I like Dr. Ko bringing it back.
Right.
Yeah.
Bringing it back to recovery.
Talking about, being able to relate to people and in a real way.
Well, you're authentic.
Yeah.
There's something you become authentic when you
Yes.
get sober.
Yes, I think that's what it is, finding your authenticity, or I said finding your voice. I think I meant the exact same thing, which is finding my spirituality, Yeah.
Well, there's a certain peace in being yourself,
Yeah,
and internally and externally.
absolutely.
What about the cases, though, and we hear about this a lot, where, people say, oh, Charlie was a great guy, and then he stopped drinking, and now he's so boring, I can't stand being around him.
I haven't heard of those cases.
Yeah.
And that was a Friends episode with
you
Fun
know,
Bobby.
Fun Bobby, I'm from.
I think that's one of the myths of addiction, that if you sober up, you're not going to be any fun anymore.
or is talented.
Yeah. Or is
Or
talented.
talented.
Right. It makes no sense
But
at all.
but the gregarious, sort of outgoing storytelling type of personality that's disinhibited by alcohol,
Narcissistic.
and narcissistic,
Yeah.
right? Like is out there. Hey,
Right, but that guy's never really funny in the first place. So those guys are not funny.
Exactly.
I mean, how many of
Who's
those
interested in that?
Right, because how many people do you sit in front of?
that person was interested in that.
Yeah,
Right.
But it's always that loud person that's making the horrible jokes that you're like, please God, shut him up. That's when I know you're praying, and
And
you're
I'm
like,
walking
"Please."
the other direction.
Right, and walking in the other direction, embarrassing everybody. He's like the parlor. He's the parlor trick that everybody brings,
Right.
Or the party trick, the party favor. Bring him, wind him up, get him drunk.
favor.
Yeah.
Only you could objectify somebody into a party favor.
Well, some people are yes. Some people are party favors, but yeah, I agree. You're the one that says it always constantly.
It's a
That,
different industry.
that if you walk into a restaurant and you hear the loudest table, usually they are the sober people.
They do tend to be the sober table.
Yeah.
I've found that to be true. For me, I've gotten more outgoing, more gregarious, more everything since I got sober, And I've found ways to actually to put myself out there and take risks, which is so gratifying,
Right.
And I have like a much more active social life than I ever did when I was drinking. So especially in the last
Tell
few
us
years.
more.
Well, I think most people do. I mean,
Yeah.
you would hope.
I mean, it forces you to really put yourself out there, to extend yourself, to, rather than, my drinking was like getting me into a nice, tight little hole than staying in one little place, so.
Well, now here's the question, because we talk about this constantly about people that are born. Some people are, the younger, when people are younger and they get here, like the two of us.
People that are more genetically predisposed
okay.
to addiction.
That's when we got here, we had no social skills for the most part.
Right.
So you got here a little later.
Well, but, Steve was talking about depression, right? You were depressed for a long time.
For a long time, yeah.
Right. And how's the depression been since you got sober? Did it lift?
Okay.
Alcohol is a depressant, so that's
Yeah.
one of the issues as well. So.
And this is actually a very kind of a touchy subject in the 12-step program, and I can only speak for myself.
Not for us, don't worry.
Yeah, but for me, I had what I called circumstantial or situational depression.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's what I was looking for, and it's been almost entirely alleviated for me my situational depression, and to me it was like a cycle of insanity that I kept putting myself through, because I was constantly focused on what I wasn't getting and what the world wasn't delivering to me. And so I would work for it, and when I didn't get it, I get depressed. But when I'm working for it, I'm happy. When I'm not getting it and focused on that, I'm depressed. And it went like that for years and years and years for me. And as I just focus on the here and now and what I'm doing right now, it's been almost entirely alleviated for me. And I know that's not everyone's situation.
Do you think that original pattern was set up in childhood?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I've done a lot of inner child, looking back, all of this stuff.
So tell me about that, like when you just sort of, I just said that, but,
Yeah, well,
that's
true.
what we see quite often is it seems like people, they have a reaction to how their parents treated them,
Absolutely.
or how they were trained to think or deal with problems.
Yeah, absolutely. I come from a family of there was neglect for certain when I was growing up, me and my siblings, and substantial amount of psychological trauma inflicted by my parents. But I don't say that's in no way why I became an alcoholic. I became an alcoholic because of my actions, the way that I reacted to the world, and the data that I was receiving, and my actions got me to my alcoholism, and I firmly believe that. I don't really know about the whole genetically predisposed. For me, in my family, there was not a lot of alcoholism.
Well, that's a good question, though. Can you make yourself an alcoholic?
Drinking,
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I've always said that any progressive use of a toxin or a substance that creates addiction, right, that, is going to lead to addiction. You do anybody that engages in repetitive action, and Dr. Coe talks about it in terms of compulsivity, right?
Compulsivity, yeah.
Right.
Well, if you can make yourself one, why can't you unmake yourself one?
Well, there are certain physiologic obstacles too.
But that's also the line between abuse and addiction.
Right.
Right. People can abuse, like I've said commonly on this show, if you look at college students who binge drink, that's the abuse of alcohol. And some people would look at that abuse of alcohol, that binge drinking, as alcoholism. But really, it's just alcohol abuse because they actually haven't progressed into an alcoholic state. Right. So they don't have some of these symptoms that we see in late stage alcoholism.
So you don't think some people that have alcoholism, there is a bizarre allergy that they have right away?
I think that, like most things, Americans always want one answer.
Mm-hmm. No, I didn't say for everybody.
Right,
I'm saying for some people.
And I think that alcoholism addiction is one of these things where there isn't one answer.
Right.
There's many different answers and there's many different paths. What we do know is that I think that once somebody reaches the state of addiction, past abuse, then we know that there's a certain symptomology that comes along with that, which is pathological. It's bad for you and it can kill you.
Addiction is a behavioral syndrome, right, which is distinguished from being dependent on a drug, and they go together, but they can be separate.
Right. But medically, what would you actually call the physical addiction? It's still an addiction.
Addiction, if you're physically dependent, is what I'm talking about,
Right.
then there's a withdrawal syndrome.
Right.
And
then once you're past
and so
that,
you're going to keep taking the drug because you don't want to withdraw.
correct.
Yeah.
So cocaine really isn't physically addicting, right?
Right.
But yet
It can have
people have strong psychological addictions.
Exactly.
But isn't that really physical?
Well, some of it is.
See, I was setting you up for the tricky question.
No, but these are very hard because
Right,
marijuana,
because-
the same thing. I think with marijuana, you have the same question because like a lot of people.
I think people are starting to realize that, that there probably are structural changes in
Yeah.
the brain chemistry that keep people compulsively
Addicted.
using marijuana.
Well, what you're talking about now is cravings.
Cravings, right. But also, dopamine obviously is affected by cocaine, and your receptors must be affected. So there must be actually while you don't have a withdrawal symptom, I don't know.
Well,
It is. It's a hard question. It's a hard question to answer.
Even a craving will release dopamine.
Right.
Just a trigger.
Right. They did that, like just showing people crack pipes will release huge amounts of dopamine.
Oh, really?
Right.
Yeah, before they even smoke anything.
Which goes to what we were
that's-
talking about that one time. It's also the
so
ritual
that's-
of using.
Right. We actually got to go out to a
Yeah.
break.
Okay.
So let's let Judah give out the number. Maybe we can get a call tonight.
We're in the studio tonight with Dr. Jason Coe and comedian Steven Jackson.
We're up against the MTV Video Music
Awards. The number here is 877-830-830. That's 877-830-830. You're listening to Clean Radio.
We'll see you in a few
And we're going out to
seconds.
Beth by Kiss.
This CD choices tonight. I don't know.
It's, it's a deep story to me.
It's another Judaism.
It is. I actually broke up to a girl.
Oh wow.
I broke up with a girl because of this song. I did. True story that I will maybe never
gotta
tell
hear
on the
that
radio.
one.
Yeah, we'll hear that when we get back. We'll be back in Clean Radio in a few seconds.
And we just can't find the sound. Just a few more hours, and I'll be right home to you.
Welcome to Clean Radio on Angels Radio AM 830.
The Sober Lifestyle Show presented by Clean Residential Treatment Center, a dynamic and professional addiction treatment facility.
Clean Radio features celebrity and professional interviews covering a wide range of topics. If you or someone you know is in need of assistance in dealing with addictive disorders, call us now at 877-830-830 or go to cleanradio.com. Now your hosts for Clean Radio, Andrew and Judah.
Oh boy.
I was teaching the Judah dance
I know.
to Dr. Coe.
For those who don't know what the Judah dance is, go to cleanradio.com and you can try and up Judah's viral video dancing ritual. He's trying to hit 200 views.
Don't hate.
Don't hate.
Don't hate.
Okay.
Takes a lot.
Anyway, so we were just into like really great conversation when we had to go out for a break, but I just kind of want to bring it back because there's this whole idea of psychological addiction versus physical addiction, and science is telling us more and more every day about different drugs, and I think marijuana especially is one of these interesting substances where people claim there's no way to be addicted to marijuana, and yet we see so many physical maladies and behavioral changes that have to do with the substance and the substance being in the body. So to me, in a way, while it may not constitute physical addiction, it definitely has a physical syndrome to it. So I don't
Certainly
know.
does.
Well, I mean, I think that's what the biggest question, though, is what you're asking. Sort of is
So I already asked it. So let's let the
the
doctor
mental
answer.
craving. No, but I think it's important to talk about the mental craving. Sometimes does supersede the physical.
I think it's even more than mental, though. I mean, I think there's like a lot of biological stuff that's physical, right? And
you can't separate them.
right,
And
the
that's what
brain
makes it
is
so hard.
physical, right? It's
Right.
an organ.
Yeah.
Right. It's part of the body.
It is
Yeah.
weird that we have such a stigma towards the brain being an organ. It's like the idea that because it creates the mind, therefore it's so. And it used to be with the heart. Like people were originally opposed to heart transplants because they thought that your soul existed in your heart.
That's right.
And there was a big movement to not allow heart surgery because you would actually take the person away.
What year was
and
this?
there was
No, it was not long ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was like in the
and in
when
the history of medicine, just discovering that the heart was the organ of circulation,
Right.
really upset a lot of people.
right. They
Yeah.
thought that your soul and your feelings and your whatever
Yeah.
were in your heart, not your brain.
Yeah, and
This was like up into the 40s, right? 40s, 50s even.
well, yeah. I mean, it still exists today.
Yeah.
I mean, in common language,
Right.
Have a heart.
You broke my heart.
Yeah. Right.
In Judah's case, he has no heart.
Oh. And Andrew has taken off his hat.
I have because my head was getting kind of hot. It was steamy from the conversation.
So let me ask you a question. I'm thinking about shaving my head. Would you be offended by that?
I'm sure everybody will be offended by that. No, go for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't mean fully. I don't
Although
mean, like-
you've only been complaining for months about growing out your hair.
Yeah, I don't mean like razor.
Yeah, see, we got to deal with this obsessive thoughts that he has about his hair.
Really?
Yeah, he's been obsessing about growing out his hair. That's why we had to endure this hat for now going into the hot summer months, which, I've never understood why guys go around with like knit hats on in the middle of summer. Although,
Yeah.
Well, it's because
I've wondered that too.
It's okay. Let me show you. It's for people with afros, and which means me. And my hair gets really curly when it's getting long. I don't have perfect hair like our guest tonight.
Oh, please.
And, and
Thank you.
And I'm not referring to you, Andrew. I'm not follically enhanced like you are. And
hair. Jason, Dr. Co,
look at
and I
me.
have no hair.
Well, that's why I asked,
You
would
have-
it offend you if I shaved my head?
Oh.
Because that, I don't want to insult your,
Oh,
you know,
I don't know. I
condition.
mean, you claim to be the Judah.
Judah, we're going to love you however you are.
That's
No,
right.
we're going to see.
It's unconditional.
Even if you dance.
We're going to find that out soon enough.
You're right, dancing. You're dancing.
I'm actually going to get
Judah.
a mohawk. Should I go for the mohawk?
Oh my goodness, no.
With some red tips.
I'm going to get Andrew's initial over here and yours over here. Says my hair's going to say AJ.
Uh-huh. And with red tips.
Or JA, which would be jackass.
You're like looking at the engineer to see if you could say that?
I don't know if that's legal on.
Yeah, you're allowed to say
radio.
ass.
No, yeah, I can. I'm getting a nod
Yeah.
from the engineer.
Yeah, you're allowed to
So,
say ass.
Yeah, okay. There we go. And Jack.
And Jack. So anyways, getting back to it, so we were talking about a very important thing about the song going out. I'm joking. We don't have to hear about that. But I do think it's something people often talk about because you hear a lot of people when you get into many 12 steps, if it used to be at least, like people would look at people that just smoked pot as somehow less than, like they didn't belong there.
Right.
Right.
And,
Marijuana is a very dangerous drug.
and it's probably gotten more dangerous, right?
Because it's stronger.
Right.
Yeah. But, people, say, oh, it's natural, we just smoke it. Cultures have done it for, a long time. But what we're finding out is it affects memory and also motivation in a big way.
Also, thought disorders, paranoia.
True. Some people get
paranoia.
paranoid.
I got
with it.
that's why I didn't smoke pot. It made me extremely paranoid, and it gave me the munchies.
Cause panic disorder.
Yeah, it can increase anxiety. A lot of people use it to treat anxiety or self-medicate anxiety.
Right.
And it stays around a long time. And because it's metabolized in a linear fashion.
So when doctors say, the half-life of a drug is, I don't know, whatever, 20 days, right? So that means it takes 20 days for half the drug to get out of your system, right?
That's right.
And then the next 20 days, half of the half is out, right?
Right.
Something like that, right? So, if once you reach, but there's got to be a level of which it matters, right? So even though marijuana stays in your system for a year, right? So the half-life, I don't know how you'd calculate the half-life for marijuana because you're going down.
I'm not. It's hard.
Half by half by half by half, right? So
Even though I think it's a few days, but it's very attracted to the fatty tissues, and the brain is fat, so it stays in the brain a long time.
So
And I really think that.
So the cannabinoids, right? Cannabinoids,
right.
Cannabinoids, actually THC, and I guess THC isn't the only active element in marijuana. There's other active elements. Well, there's carcinogens, I suppose. There's all
Right.
sorts of stuff, right?
Yeah, they're working on that. They're finding THC receptors throughout the body too.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah,
Oh, it's like in muscle tissue and
muscle tissue, gonads. So
really.
you're
Wow,
seeing
that's scary.
Well, I mean, years ago I
decreased
heard
sperm
that
counts.
Lowers fertility.
Yeah, lowers your testosterone, right?
Huh.
If
Yeah.
you're a male.
and and
Yeah.
sperm count. Yeah.
So THC would actually block the receptor sites for cells from having other reception for other.
I'm not
Is
sure
that how it would
how
work, or it just confuse stuff? Or?
Can I be honest? I've always been annoyed by potheads. They've always
they've been annoyed
me
by you, Judah.
Most probably because they always had the bongs with the name for the bongs and the whole ritual. They would all listen to like what they thought was good music, and they could all listen. Let me tell you, I'm gonna say this out loud. The Grateful Dead stunk. Okay, the Grateful Dead stunk.
I'm with you on that one.
And so does Fish, and so do all these bands that potheads listen
jam
to.
bands.
And and let me tell you something. Is Jerry Garcia,
cultural more than
Jerry
anything,
Garcia
right? I mean, it's
ice
like-
cream stinks. Okay, there's nothing good about.
Do you have a strong feeling about this?
Yes, I do,
Judah?
and it's finally coming out. I've always been extremely annoyed by
finally
potheads.
coming
Okay, I've always because.
they're self-absorbed.
Yeah,
right?
just extremely self. You're right.
Yeah.
yeah. And but the problem is they think they're not. they claim to be so spiritual and
And
open, but they're so annoying.
They're almost snobs in a way,
Yeah.
you know, with the
That's a
whole
good way to say
the
it.
whole pot culture. There's a whole whole pot culture out there that I never was a part of. I tried it a couple of times, it just wasn't my thing, and I never really wanted to be part of that group anyway.
I never understood five guys sitting around smoking weed. I never understood the fun in that. It's like five guys watching a porn together. Really, what's the point?
Well, for some five guys, that's very
I'm
exciting.
talking about in the straight. I'm talking about in the straight community. We're talking about in the straight community.
might wanna
Like I'd
clarify
have
that.
guys that go, "Oh, we're all gonna smoke weed tonight." I'd be like, "Why?
Right.
Like, what's the point?"
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I think in low levels, and it can be kind of eye-opening.
I feel honestly really
Interesting.
good right now that I finally just said it.
As a hater of pot smoking.
I've always, I couldn't, I just couldn't take it. I hated, I mean, just the dead and all those, the
But a lot of those things you're complaining about are cultural phenomena.
Yeah.
well, that lasted a long time.
Well, it's still going on.
Yeah, that still goes on because there's always the next generation that's going to go, oh my God, have you listened to the Dead? And, or Fish. There's always this new band out there that caters to potheads.
Yeah.
I never really got into the pot humor either, you know, the whole Cheech and
It's
Chong and
mostly
move on
like-
from there, you
Or
know.
situational.
Well, because it wasn't funny.
Well, it's observational. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's like observational humor, right? Like, what's that one? Like, don't birds realize they could live in a not?
I have
Crappy
no idea what you're
neighborhood.
talking about.
There's some comedian. I forget his name. He's got this joke like, why do birds live in bad neighborhoods? Like, don't they realize they could fly somewhere else? Like, and that's like pothead
That's a
humor.
joke you have to
Right.
be stoned
Right,
to laugh at.
or to even think of.
Yeah.
As
yeah,
opposed
exactly.
to Stephen Wright, who's funny.
Yeah.
As
He was probably a massive pothead, or probably still is.
I wonder that. That's actually a good question.
But I think the bottom line of all substances is the person who's using them is impaired in some fashion or another, and their relatedness to other people is impaired.
I heard George Carlin though talk about he became completely sober for a long time, and then towards the end of his life he started smoking small amounts of marijuana again, and he claimed that he would write jokes straight, and then he would smoke a little bit of pot, and then he would adjust them. So it's hard to say.
Well,
It definitely gives you a different perspective.
You can't say it's all bad.
And I think that's one of the things that I
but
really
he wasn't using it, in an addictive way.
right in a compulsive.
Was he using it for medicinal purposes, or
He was
just-
using it. And this is what he said. Actually, this is what I think was interesting. What he
creative
said
purposes.
for creative purposes, he said he wouldn't use much, just a teeny little bit, and that was enough. He learned how to just use just a teeny little bit to be able to engage in this creative process, which is so different from what we see with abuse, which is compulsive overuse.
Well, most people don't have that willpower, as you
And
would
what was
say.
this? What was the study we were actually talking about 6 months ago with related to alcohol, and how most of the positive effects of alcohol happen within the first drink,
Right.
right? And then after that, there really aren't any positive benefits mentally that you get. It's just piling on alcohol,
Right.
right?
To the point where you have obliterated anything good from the first
I
one.
think there's what we're talking about is some heightening of senses,
Right.
and perception.
And then you just dull.
Then you become dull. Right.
Right.
And so that's probably what George Carlton was.
Carlin.
Carlton. Yeah.
George Carlton, he's my neighbor. he's got this leaf blower. It's unbelievable.
Well, actually, you weren't even referring to George Carlin.
Right,
You were
it was
referring to George Carlin. At the end of his life, he learned how to mow better.
Sorry about that.
You got to smoke pot to really understand that joke, by the way.
No, but okay, so one of my favorite writers growing up was a guy named Mike Donlevy. I think I spoke about this a while back. A New York Post writer that could have been a lot bigger than he was. I mean, he wrote a section, but obviously he was a huge drinker because it was the emphasis of every column he ever wrote about.
Right.
So while it might have helped with a certain amount of creativity, there's a certain point where alcohol just doesn't allow you, or drugs. It takes away that it takes away your initiative, and I don't mean to sound like a public service announcement.
One drink, or beyond that, or a couple of puffs of marijuana, and people are going to be impaired.
But look at Winston Churchill, right? Someone who, heavy drinker, heavy tobacco user, huge problem with depression, right?
Yeah.
obviously drank probably because of his depression, and yet extremely functional, even when being a heavy drinker, in terms of the output, creative output of writing and his ability to be a politician,
statesman,
right?
Yeah.
So there's someone who's obviously an alcoholic,
High functioning.
very high,
Extremely high
alcoholic.
functioning.
And could he have been as dynamic and imposing, and he had no other way to treat his depression?
But we had the reverse in America. We had Richard Nixon.
There are exceptions.
There are exceptions.
But no, we had Richard Nixon.
Can you name
So
anybody?
now this is the pro-drinking show now. This is
Can you name another person?
Yeah, there's always the one,
Can I-
Jimmy,
yeah, can I
Jimmy
name-
Buffett. There's always the one success story of somebody that's
He's
managed.
just a marketing guy.
Yeah, that managed to.
That's marketing. Yeah.
That's marketing. Yeah.
But most people
I mean, do you
don't.
really think Jimmy Buffett's drinking a margarita every day?
He's probably not drinking at all.
Yeah.
Right, he's not right. He's not drinking
He's got
everything.
us all thinking.
He's just counting the money right now.
But I'm pretty sure if you listen to most of, because I'm actually one of those Jimmy Buffett fans.
Well, you don't like the Grateful Dead, but you like
Jimmy Buffett, man, he
Wow.
caters to alcoholics. I mean, Jimmy Buffett's music. Not,
I'm pretty well convinced that
it's quite the pose you've struck in that
yeah,
chair
I
over
know.
there.
That there's nothing that like people in general cannot do sober, that they would have otherwise done drinking. You know what I mean? Like for me, there was when I was drinking, there was like a narrow window when I could actually get stuff done and have it be good before it was just like I've lost all track of what I was thinking of, and getting any kind of coherent form of thought through. But I'm pretty well convinced that anything that I do now, it's not like I wouldn't have been able to arrive there when I was drinking. It's not something I would have come to when I was drunk. So.
And this is one of those things we were talking about. Younger people, when they get in here, didn't have that ability. There's something that, for me, I could never have done the things I've done in the last certain amount of years. I could never have
But
done
I also
that.
think we're seeing people recognize that their abusive patterns of drug or alcohol use might not yet meet the criteria of full-blown addiction, but they recognize that it's abusive and then choose to become sober prior to entering a full addictive sort of syndrome,
I think that's with a lot of people, yeah.
right? I mean, you go to an AA meeting in Iowa, you're going to meet a lot of late-stage alcoholics.
Right, you're probably not
You
going to see 16 and
You go to an AA
17-year-old.
meeting in LA, and you're going to
Yeah.
meet a lot of drug abusing and alcohol abusing, young adults.
Which goes to a whole other topic of acceptance as a society. Does it 30 years ago, 20 years ago, you didn't have the same amount of young people, the tolerance of a society allowing people to get help.
Right.
Do those people actually need help, or is it just because society is tolerant?
Well, and what are they needing help for? I mean, I think that a lot of long-term addiction is sometimes a symptom of underlying issues.
Right.
Loneliness,
Mhm.
right? Lack of love and compassion and friendship in your life. Depression.
Anxiety disorders.
And we're in the studio tonight with Dr. Jason Coe, psychiatrist extraordinaire, and comedian Stephen Jackson. See, I can remember
Extraordinaire.
names. No, I was, on the, what's the name of your tour again? It's
Convicts of Comedy.
Convicts of Comedy.
Yeah.
And you didn't have to be in jail to be a member of that team?
No, it's not a requisite, although it does help.
So where did the name come from?
We originally wanted to call ourselves the Antisocial Network, and that we thought was extremely clever and fit the mood of our tour pretty well. And then we found out, some of the biggest names in comedy are already touring with that name.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
You found that irony in it.
Yeah, David Tell, Jim Brewer, Jim Norton, and we're like, oh, great, So
Wow.
it was a second choice, but still, it kind of in the same vein of we're all a little bit, I guess, irreverent is probably good. We don't do anything really clean.
Right.
This is KLEAN Radio, but all of our stuff is pretty blue. So
That's pretty edgy.
Yeah, and a couple of us have been in lockup. So
Yeah.
yeah,
In the stir.
yeah.
The stir,
I like saying that.
the stir
But,
means war.
I am the only one of the seven of us who is sober, though, so that I kind of have a unique perspective on the whole thing, I guess.
Do you find that difficult sometimes? I mean, are the rest of the guys out there? It's all guys, right?
Yeah,
I didn't see you on the website, right?
Yeah, it's just 7 guys, and no,
Like jail.
honestly,
You like jail, like the pot smoking people you hate.
Yeah. Yes, exactly right.
It's 8 guys sitting around.
honestly, I don't find it that difficult. I mean, the guys I've been friends with for a while, and we all relate to each other really well, and there's no problem there. I did find, however, though, when we did our first show yesterday in Fresno, that going there and seeing some of the stuff that I saw there, it brought up some old feelings. And going to some clubs there, I'm like, oh, this is the kind of place that I would normally be trashed in, and it really made me a little bit uncomfortable. The social anxiety started kicking in, and but when they came to showtime, it actually went over really well. So
What I hear a lot is that people like, it's when you show up in a situation, you're sober, and it's once you watch people pass the first couple drinks and start making jackasses of themselves, then so you're kind of like fine.
Yeah, yeah, it's
and
true.
you're kind of in control.
Yeah, it really doesn't even go through my mind that much anymore, But being out of my element, though, that really did sort of bring that to the forefront. You're kind of confronted again with that stuff being either geographically out of your element, or if there's any kind of like severe emotional shake up, that'll also it'll make you really want to run for something, just anything to get you out of what you're feeling right at that moment. The old methods, anyway, the old methods of how we got out of our skin.
No,
So,
without a doubt. I mean, I still to this day, when I have to go to a hotel, I mean, I hate hotel. I'm not a big fan of hotels. It freaks me out.
When's the last time you had to go to a hotel?
About a month ago.
Why was that?
I got invited.
You got invited to a hotel?
I got invited to a hotel.
You just invited to a hotel.
I got him. Wow. I got him.
What, it was like an ad?
I got invited to sleep in a hotel.
15% discount.
I got invited.
Ritz Carlton.
I got invited to sleep at a hotel for the night, and it totally breaks my cycle up.
Right? Did you have them remove the minibar?
No, but it wouldn't be great if you could, put your own sheets on the bed.
No, that's why you go to a hotel.
No, I
You
would
don't have
so
to
much
deal with
prefer it. You walked in there, they don't have
Oh,
a bed
you're so
spread
neurotic.
and
OCD, huh?
Right? Totally OCD.
I would love it if a vacuum was in there.
A vacuum?
Yeah, just make sure underneath the bed.
Are you? I've never actually been in your place. Is it like really clean? And
No,
neat?
not in particular.
So
Because it's my own crap.
Wait. So
It's my own mess.
So your own mess.
I'm
Your own
totally
place,
okay
You're
with it.
dirty. You got bed bugs.
Yeah, I don't care about my
Haven't
own
changed
mess.
the sheet.
It's
You've
other
been wearing
people's.
the same hat for 3
One
months.
second, have you ever walked into somebody's house and you see a dirty kitchen? So you would never eat if if they cooked me
Right,
food.
but yours is like
But
that.
my dirty kitchen's fine for me.
Oh.
There's a huge. People always think because you're OCD that means you're clean. No, I'm clean about your clean. I don't really care about my clean.
That's called that's neurotic. That's
Well, we're discovering more and more about you, Judah.
There's a hole. It's
a hole. He looks up. He goes, there's a hole, and he looks up. What is that?
It'll take a lifetime, Doc.
I think that's
to go
just called
through.
being a hypocrite. Am I right?
Well, that's what I heard.
It's not a clinical diagnosis. It's just
You're just a jerk.
It's just a jerk. Right?
Well, I heard somebody say that one time. They go, I always hear alcoholics say they're perfectionists. He goes,
Right.
and somebody goes, I'm not a perfectionist. I want you to be perfect.
Right.
But I have nothing when it comes to me.
You're fine.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So I did get invited to a hotel, but yeah.
I still want. I'm sorry, and I know this says, but this is obviously some sort of syndrome of your drug and alcohol abuse, because nobody gets invited to a hotel. Like, what do you mean invited to a hotel?
Somebody had an extra room. They said, "Hey, you want to stay here for the night?" I was
Just
like,
randomly,
Yeah.
like, and was it like next to your house?
It was actually
like,
it was on
like,
Craigslist.
Oh.
It was the casual encounter section. It was in South Bay.
So it was a hookup.
Let me ask you
No.
a question. Why did you accept?
Yeah.
Because it was a friend of mine that invited me.
Oh.
A friend
How
that
far away was it from your house?
I don't know, 15 miles.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
My girlfriend invited me.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that makes more sense. It's like a love hotel.
It was a love nest.
Without the love.
You know what? You do engage in some weird behavior
When you're
sometimes
sober?
after you get sober. Yeah.
That wasn't weird behavior. Okay, my mother listened to the show. This wasn't like some crazy.
We're not talking about with the girl. We're talking about getting the hotel room.
Yeah, but no.
I'm not saying it was, but I'm just speaking.
Yes, some people do get into devious behavior when they get
Really?
sober.
Yeah, yeah.
Really?
Yes,
Your
yes.
addiction starts
That's
to go.
how actually I met Andrew.
Yeah.
We about 7 years ago, I answered this Craigslist ad for dirty underwear, and
Did they have Craigslist 7 years ago?
I think so.
I don't think so. Did they?
I don't know.
Okay, adult
Somebody
friend
Google
finder
it.
about 7 years ago.
Adult friend.
Oh man, I went on
And
that.
I was just looking for adult friends.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff, though. People start acting out in other ways,
Yeah.
you know, sexually or whatnot. You know,
And
and
Judah. I mean, look, he's got the hat on. He's
yeah,
throwing candy.
Yeah.
He's dancing. Strangely, going to hotels 15 minutes away from his house.
15 miles.
Complaining about the sheets.
Yeah, that's you know. But that's OCD stuff, and you know that really gets worse as you get older. It's horrible.
can.
It's and I remember when it got really bad, and I mean, not to get a little morbid, but when my grandmother died, when I had about 3 years sober, that's when it really just totally, my hotel thing just totally, because we had to stay in a Days Inn in West Palm Beach, and Days Inns are not
This
like
is the trauma story of the
this
evening.
is
This is
this-
our Barbara Walters moment.
This is, and
Finally coming.
it totally put me into, it gave me a horrific anxiety attack, and since then, I can't even.
So you associated your dead grandmother with hotels.
Motels. That wasn't even a hotel.
It wasn't even a hotel.
No, but I smelt the smoke. You know, it was one of the days when you could still smoke, and I smelt it in the air conditioning system. Since then,
And you get in the bed and you put your hand on the sheet and 5 cigarette holes.
I don't
and
even want to
everything
think
comes
about it.
out.
I don't even want to think about it. That ABC special that had ruined hotels for everybody with the purple light.
What?
You don't remember that ABC special where they
Never saw it.
you did, right?
No, I never
Where they
saw it.
walk through a hotel room with the dark light or with a
with
whatever
the
light.
luminous
Oh,
light.
yeah, you know,
and
and
black
just
light.
like the black light
Yeah.
showing
Yeah.
with the purple light, black light.
Oh,
same
that's
thing.
terrifying.
And once I saw that, it could totally. And I'm a guy that used to be able to I kid you not, when I was drinking, I had no problem sleeping.
All right,
anywhere.
Dr. Coe, we have medication for this, do we not?
Yeah, there are. Yeah.
Maybe just I'm scared that it's getting worse.
You know, there are more germs on your body than you have cells.
But they're my own germs again.
But
My own germs.
They're all over, wherever
Right?
you are.
Let's just really freak him out tonight.
Yeah.
No, that stuff doesn't freak me out. It doesn't get to me. That stuff
Honestly.
doesn't.
All right, well, we're going to go out to a break, and then Drew's going to go wash his hands.
Little Bon Jovi taking us out.
Really?
Yeah.
Bon Jovi. The music tonight, by the way, listeners, is selected by Judah.
The number is 877-8-830-830. It's 877-8-830-830. You're listening to Clean Radio.
I go wrong. My life's a bargain basement, all the good shit's gone. Just get all the
Gotcha. Now we got side dancing.
I know, we got the Judah dance is spreading.
Yeah, we have-
This is how it goes viral,
We have side seat dancing.
right? It's really scaring me, though.
I think I'm scaring you tonight.
You are.
I
I
think
had no idea that you had such obsessive compulsive disorder.
it's not that bad. It's just with certain things. It's just with
Sheets.
sheets. It comes down to a couple of.
It's almost phobias more than obsessive.
I used to have
compulsive
phobias
disorder.
of gum.
Yeah?
I could not take when people would take their gum. I mean, I just find it repulsive. But I mean,
So you had a simple phobia of gum?
no, when people would take their gum, let's say, and put,
Right.
you know, if you were sitting at a table with somebody,
Chewing
and
it,
they
right.
chewing it,
Take
and
it
they
out.
take it out and put it in a paper towel,
Right.
and put it on the table.
You couldn't stand
I
it being
couldn't.
there.
I would say to them, "You got to move it."
But that's like you're just irritated.
What about the people that put it on the side of their plate when
No,
they're eating dinner?
I would.
That's terrible.
That's
Behind
just,
their ear? Behind
they-
their ear?
Anything. People that pull the gum out of their mouth, they have
Yeah.
to go. I won't shake their hand. I
Under the
won't.
chair.
I won't. I won't. I will not.
I mean,
because
I hate to laugh at your mental illness.
it's okay.
but, you know.
Listen, if this is the worst it is that I can't
But you
stand.
said
it.
it's getting worse.
No. The hotel thing has gotten worse.
The hotel thing is getting
Yeah.
worse. But yet you accept invites to go to hotels.
You know, I try to, but that's part of my progression of becoming a better
Unbelievable.
is because I don't want to be that person.
This is the least clinical I think I've ever been in my life. I'm just like sitting here absorbing the insanity.
You're fascinated by the Judah.
We actually have a call. My goodness. Caller's name is Mark. Our engineer is actually entering the data prior to us getting the call.
Sounds so excited.
Well, you know, I'm casual tonight.
It's casual Andrew.
I'm doing the, you know, Grateful Dead sort of radio, man.
Oh, God.
Well, yeah, we're going to take a call. We got a call on line 1. Welcome to KLEAN Radio. You're on the air. Is it Shelley?
Yeah.
You were
How are you
close
doing?
with the name Mark.
No, this is Shelley.
Shelley.
We have 2 calls that are lined up.
Okay. Wow. Shelley.
Formerly known as Mark. No,
Right?
this is Shelley.
Poor Shelley, here you are talking with Judah. We're talking about his germs and his hotel problems.
Well, yeah, I got the OCD. I'm a checker, and in sobriety, it loomed quite large. It was pretty amazing.
You're a checker?
Yeah, she
I'm a checker.
repeatedly checks things.
Oh,
like
okay.
Dark
Yeah, I
clouds.
checked
lights
stuff.
are out,
Right.
the gas stove's off, that kind
Yeah,
of stuff.
it's a little firebug thing. And when I used to smoke and curl my hair, it was really a mess. I mean, it would take me forever to leave the house.
Andrew had that problem, too.
So, Shelley, did that happen while you were using, or did it something you happen afterwards?
It
or?
happened. Well, it's an anxiety disorder, of course, and it happened for reasons when I moved out of the house, and I was up to my neck in my addiction. But when I got clean and sober, this is why I was calling in, because you guys were talking about weed, and
Sure.
I just wanted to say that. So yes, it came horribly alive in my early sobriety, and I think I had quit drinking. I kept trying to quit drinking throughout my career, my 17-year span as an addict. And every time I would stop drinking, I would smoke weed. And the last time I drank for 2 years and then smoked weed for a year and then finally got clean and sober. And the post-acute withdrawal from that was unbelievable. Like, my withdrawal from alcohol was nothing compared to the weed.
Interesting. What kind of effect did it have during withdrawal?
Well, I was dumb. I didn't have any memory. I had horrible sleep disturbance, but that's, childhood anxiety too. I was just untreated. This is the bottom line. When I got clean and sober, I had no idea how much my using was actually my medicine, and it was really holding me together in the world because I was untreated. I had a lot of familial issues, like it sounds like you're a guest, and the comedian, and it's quite horrifying I became very undone in my sobriety. I was done drinking and using. It wasn't an option, but I'll tell you, man, I did not bargain on the psychic pain that I was going to be in.
Well, there's so much talk about addiction in moral, in religious circles about the morality of addiction and, how could people use and how could they become an alcoholic or an addict or whatever. And, to me, it's so clear that from the show and the callers that we get that most people that call in have been using substances because they were in pain, because they were having some physical symptoms or psychological symptoms that weren't being treated. And just through what's available in the environment around them, they would find these substances that would give them some relief.
Yeah, and that's not always apparent to the user, like Shelley was saying, that she wasn't even prepared for the psychological upheaval that she was about to go through once she got sober. And that was kind of my experience, too. At a year sober, I was having suicidal thoughts. I was flipping out. I was kind of out of my head because I was having to deal with all the stuff that I was refusing to look at for so long.
And I believe that's why most people don't stay sober, is because that stuff is too painful.
Yeah.
Well, this is what Dr. Coe has been talking about with us on the show a lot, is that, even just going into a treatment center, that gets you sober, and we get to begin to do the work that leads to relief. Just getting sober itself isn't enough.
Right, that's why I'm such a big proponent of psychotherapy after you get sober, to deal with what you've been dealing with by using.
And also to have a good clinical assessment, right?
Of course,
That's
yes.
the route that I took. Yeah, I got into a therapy about a year and a few months after I got sober, and what it's done is like it's really taken my sobriety to a new level. You know, being able to work through all that stuff. Yeah, it's just like it's so much more solid than just not drinking.
Shelley,
Can I say something to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because you know, I actually came into my recovery sort of through the back door because I quit drinking again, went into therapy, and then through this language of self-care and, you know, trying to understand myself, I finally stopped. But the thing about it was when I finally got into the rooms, begrudgingly, it took me about 6 months to get in there in my sobriety. When the fourth step came, it wasn't that daunting at all. Everyone was just dragging their feet and overwhelmed in the fourth step and endlessness, and I was like, I don't know what the big deal is.
Right.
Because I've been in therapy.
Right.
So it's really profound. It's really necessary. I call them bells, man. And you're out in the world, and you're so activated by life, and you're responding somatically to something that's in front of you, but you're responding in an unreasonable way. We're not reasonable people in the early work. We're not.
Yeah, and I think that even once sober doesn't necessarily make a person a saint. It still takes work and effort, and you know, even people that have never had problems with addictions have problems. And learning how to deal and cope with problems of life is a big part of maturity and growing up and forming an identity, and then being able to be active and productive in your life, and then having a healthy outlook as you grow older about how your life has been and what you've been able to create and give back.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for your call, Shelley. I really appreciate your call.
Yeah, thank you again, Shelley.
Yeah.
So, Jason, what do you think of that?
Well, textbook. You know?
Textbook.
Yeah. I like the way she said it. Yeah.
Right. It's interesting to hear people call that, you know, have obviously self-medicated and then had to come to their own realization that they were doing that and then get help, instead of people actually realizing that there's help available prior to having to go through this whole sort of traumatic experience of self-medicating and then bottoming out, so to speak, and then finally getting help.
Yeah, I'd sure like to catch these people before they, you know, get down the road with their addiction.
Why do you think people, I mean, I guess, you know, people go to the doctor and they lie about it, you know, like, you know, you go to the doctor when you're drinking and they say, how many drinks do you have a week or whatever, and your first question is, well, it really should be a day, right? Like, you know,
yeah,
right, you know, but like I remember I had this business associate that I worked with who was very, very much an alcoholic. I mean, he'd drink like, you know, 3 bottles of wine a day, you know, something like that. And I remember asking him once at dinner, I go, when you go to the doctor, like, and he asks, how much do you drink? You know, what do you say? You know, because, you know, he's obviously drinking like 3 bottles of wine a day.
Yeah.
And he goes, I don't lie about it. He goes, what's the point? He goes, he said, for years I did, but now I just tell him.
Well, I told you on the reverse end that when I went to rehab and they would say, when I was finally ready to get help, and they'd say, how much do you drink? And I'd be like, I don't know. If I knew, I wouldn't be here. You know, so it went from like lying to going, I don't know, once, maybe twice. It's like when you first start smoking, none of you smoke in here. You know, people go, how much do you smoke a day? And you're like, I don't know, 4 or 5.
Right.
Now it's like, okay, I'm like a pack and a half pack. That's how much
Let's
I
go
smoke.
right into another call. We got a call from Jimmy in Canoga Park. Jimmy, you there? Jimmy? Welcome to Clean Radio.
Hey, how are you guys doing?
Good. How are you
doing?
doing?
Good. I have a question for Steve, actually.
Great.
Yeah, shoot.
I was wondering, during your drinking days, if you ever fought a household appliance, and if so, who won that fight?
I have a funny feeling this is an inside call.
And that's Steve.
Who is this again? Jimmy?
Jimmy.
Really? Okay.
Jimmy from Canoga Park.
Really, caller? Is that your question?
Is Jimmy still upset about his toaster that you broke?
You know what? I punched out. I think I mentioned earlier. I punched out my laptop.
Right.
And I think I won that fight. I did get into a fist fight with an ATM, not a household appliance, but it definitely took that one. I came home with a battered hand. Was banged up a bit. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool.
All right, Jimmy, thanks for the call.
Thanks for wasting our time.
It's okay.
Have a great night.
You too.
All right, thanks. You know, it's funny. Have you had anger outbursts like that since you gotten sober?
Yeah, but you know what? All of my outbursts are kind of reflected inward. You know,
Right.
It's all directed toward me, and it always has been. And when I get angry, I just get pissed at myself. You know, and I go, destroy something that belongs to me. You know,
Right.
so that anger is another way that a lot of people.
Well, depression, anger, they're basically the same thing, right, Dr. Coe? Depression is internalized anger, and externalized anger is externalized anger. I mean, they're very similar.
Well, not really.
Strict too.
I'm like 0 for 5 with Dr. Coe tonight.
Technically, I don't like that.
You don't like that one?
No. I mean, they say anger turned inward is depression. I think more of depression as self-esteem problems.
Yeah.
And you don't feel good about yourself. There's a lot of anger involved with it, but
So if anger turned inward is depression,
Then anger turns outward is
I
aggression.
I think anger is a signal. I think of emotions as signals, and as to how you're, feeling about things, and so anger is a signal that something's going on that you don't like.
do you think that's why emotions developed over time?
Probably so. They're adaptive.
Adaptive mechanisms for people to be aware of their situational status.
Right.
I mean, fight or flight, right? You got.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But we have sort of strange mix of stuff. We're gonna take a break. We'll be right back. It's Clean Radio. Want to give us a number real quick?
Yes, the number here is 877-830-830. That's 877-830-830.
We'll be back on Clean Radio.
Not a...
Judah puts back on his hat. Well, here we are in the last 10 minutes of our show tonight. I can't believe it's been going went so quickly once again. I just get blank stares from. Judah's like, right? Judah's like, it wasn't quickly. I've been sitting here sweating over hotel sheets all night.
All night. And now I just realized Dr. Coe doesn't wear socks, so I'm even.
Now he's really freaking out.
Yeah.
It's all right. You're only an hour and a half away from Trazodone. Don't worry about it. Go into Trazodone haze.
That actually saved, just so you know, that actually really helped save my life, Trazodone.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
It's great stuff.
Yeah.
It is a non-addictive, safe sleep medication, sleep aid.
Because that's another thing people don't talk about a lot is that they can't sleep. I think
sleep is such a big
It's a secret that a lot of people carry around for years. And this is a true story. When I was a kid and I'd go to summer camp, sleepaway camp, I always hated. My biggest fear was being the last person to fall asleep.
How ironic! You go to sleep away camp,
and I
you
couldn't
can't
sleep. Things that make you go. And I remember I would knock the beds, like I'd like start hitting the metal on the beds to keep other people up, even though I was staying up myself. Or like out of nowhere, I'd go like this, like as long as nobody could see me. And
I can't handle it.
For years, I mean, and it's one of those things. It's like how you were talking about. I can't.
And you wonder why you can't keep a relationship.
Well, that was a huge thing for years for me because it was a constant fear. I'd be in a relationship, and women
you'd have to growl.
Right, exactly. I'd have to like make it like the bed was having an earthquake, and it tends to be that women
could be a talent.
Yeah, that's true. That women go to bed earlier than men. And a lot of women go to bed at 10.
Where do you get this from? Where do you get this data from?
It's my experience.
Women go to bed earlier than men.
It's my experience.
Like, you have
that women that go to work every day, wake up, go to bed at 10, 11 o'clock at night.
Okay. All right.
What time does your mother go to bed? What time does your mother go to bed at night?
I don't know. I have been around my mother for 40 years.
When you were a kid 40 years ago, what time did your mother go to bed?
After me.
Oh, but you went to bed at 7 o'clock at night.
7:30, yeah.
But yeah, so for years it devastated
My
me.
parents were very strict.
Were they?
Yeah, and plus they wanted us to go to bed so they could, like, you know, have some privacy.
So for years I couldn't sleep. So finally, when I found
two screaming kids.
Anyways, back to me.
Of course.
So finally, when I found this, it was that just sounded really bad. You just sounded like Howard Dean.
I just wanted to wake you up.
That was your Howard Dean moment.
Yeah, right.
And so yeah, and I encourage people that can't sleep not to go on something necessarily, but to be honest about it and talk about this stuff.
Trazodone, it's in the same class of drug as
antidepressant.
It's an antidepressant,
and it's a sedating antidepressant.
I always thought it was similar to Seroquel, but Seroquel is an antipsychotic, atypical antipsychotic,
right, with a lot more side effects.
Right, but it has a similar effect at a low dose, right? As Trazodone.
Yeah,
they're used similarly.
Seroquel is
right?
more powerful.
Really?
Yeah. But trazodone is given in low doses, and it's quite safe, and it improves the depth and quality of sleep. And for those people that it works, it's a godsend.
What else is it indicated for?
Well, depression.
Depression.
Yeah,
right.
And some, in high doses.
How is that non-addictive? Because I really feel like if anything that alters your state of mind, you can pretty much get addicted to. People get addicted to weird stuff. You know?
No, but it doesn't. It's not a mental.
It's not a mind altering.
Right. I don't have any. I don't take my trazodone and go.
Is that what it is?
It's like I'm out.
Okay.
And I don't need it every night. I take it when needed. If I
it's
can't.
Like aspirin.
Right.
Like you're not going to get addicted to aspirin.
I take it when needed.
I'm sure there's some. Well, there probably could be like a hoarding show on aspirin or something. You know what I mean? Like people that.
Yeah.
We do have.
We got another call and we're running out of time, so let's try and squeeze this call in. Steve, you're on KLEAN Radio.
Yeah, I have a question for the comedian.
Go ahead.
Is that Judah or Steve?
Have you ever broken a household appliance? No, sorry.
Steve.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm wondering what he thinks is funny.
What do I think is funny?
Uh-huh.
My sensibilities generally tend to gravitate toward the dark and twisted, and my act is mostly there's a lot of sexual stuff in my act. I'll freely admit that, and I find that people's sexual behavior is often hilarious.
Well, just Judah alone.
Yeah, Judah probably could tell tons of stories.
He gurs in hotel sheets that he's scared of.
Things that make you go,
right.
Hotel experiences that this man has had. I'm liking it. He looks like a bit of a deviant to me. So.
I was voted by Craigslist #1.
Oh wow!
I like stuff that is actually kind of shocking and actually kind of irreverent stuff that makes you really kind of reconsider your position on a topic.
So comedian-wise, who would you say?
I really like. I like Chris D'Elia is fascinating to me, and he's a local comic that's kind of blowing up right now.
He's on TV now with Whitney Cummings.
Yeah, with Whitney Cummings.
Whitney writes that show, though, right?
Yeah, I
think she writes.
Anthony Jeselnik is pretty cool because, like I said, he really is kind of shocking. His delivery, it really takes you off guard and is pretty surprising. So I generally like anything that really has a good shock factor to it. So
he loves me.
Yeah.
I don't know, but okay, you're here, so he'll have to love you.
Yes, and with 4 minutes left, my ego is. I need a little. I need a little uplifting.
Trazodone's only half an hour away, Judah.
That's about an hour away.
About an hour? He's counting them.
I like to watch a little TV beforehand.
So you need an anti-anxiety drug to get to your Trazodone.
Yes, I need to take my Lexapro to get to my Trazodone.
What about our caller?
But I think it goes to. But I think it's really important to talk about that. And as the show is that it's okay to talk about things, and I think that's something we like to talk about a lot. Is yes, Doc?
I agree. Yeah, say it all. Get it all out.
Because there is a huge fear with this stuff because it is embarrassing, but those little things that are embarrassing could really destroy your life.
So like I said, when I'd go, people go to the doctor, I go to the doctor, everybody lies about like what they do. And it's like, the point when you go to the doctor is to be honest.
Right.
I mean, that's, the doctor's not going to.
And, doctors as a group, we always double or triple whatever.
Is that true?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think they're like when it's like when a woman
that's
says
the
she slept with
casual
3 guys, you
factor.
multiply it times 3.
Yeah.
That's the doctor rule.
I think it's so important to talk about these things, you know what I mean? And I try to do it on stage as well. I mean, I do a bit about pedophilia now, you know, and it's not anything that I would have thought I would have been talking about, you know, when I started comedy, but it's like, you know, this stuff happens. Let's address it and let's talk about what's going on.
I always said if you want to know what human nature is,
Yeah.
look at what all humans do, add up all their collective behaviors, and that's human nature. This idea that human
Right.
nature is somehow a subset of what human does, and other things are deviant and abnormal. Well, you know,
Yeah.
Right. And let's, you know, what we're talking about here is shame. And I
Right.
think that keeps a lot of people from being honest and getting help.
Well, my sponsor actually had me take certain words out of my vocabulary. Like he wouldn't allow me to say any more bad or good, because some of us that come from religious homes, there's certain dogmatic.
I'm going to make you put those back in your vocabulary.
Super ego.
Yeah, but you're right. There's certain words that are really charged words, and you know, and morality is one of them for me. You know, and it's
For Andrew too.
It's a place where people can get stuck. You know, what's moral and what's not. Well, it's tough to talk about those things. You know, and because everyone's morality is different. So
Yeah.
We are running out of time, by the way.
I got the clock.
And let's let him give a plug.
Okay.
yeah, let's. The Convicts of
Stevens?
Comedy are actually going to be in Long Beach this Friday at Corey's. So check them out there, and check us out on Facebook, Convicts of Comedy. We're going to be touring all over Southern California, so all this summer.
That's great.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And if you like irreverent, offbeat stuff, it's definitely your cup of tea. So
Right.
yeah.
Well, good.
Cool.
And,
Judah, would you
and
like
Dr.
to-
Coe will be
Dr.
appearing
Coe?
at the Clean Treatment
Clean
Center.
Treatment Center tomorrow morning.
Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
Right.
For private sessions only. It's like the Magic Castle, but for psychiatrists.
That's exactly right.
Ah.
And Judah, you got a plug for yourself?
Yes, I will be getting a haircut this week.
Wow, this is gonna be exciting.
Probably Floyd's.
Right?
And I will be appearing in some random person's barber chair.
Wow.
And debating the whole time, should I buy a hair product? But always not.
Right. Well, I will
Because I think
spend the
too
week.
expensive.
Yeah,
I think I could get it cheaper
I'm gonna-
Ralph's.
yeah. My last plug is I will spend the week trying to recover from this conversation.
Yes.
There you go.
And
Anyway, it's been a great night, and thank you, Steve.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Dr. Coe, and thank you, Judah.
thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you, Dr. Coe. I feel a lot better tonight.
The amazing Dr. Coe.
And thanks for our listeners. It's been a good time on Clean Radio, and we'll see you next Sunday.
And riverbed